Hey everyone, it's Donna Corriel, and I am back for yet another episode of Medicine Monologues. This episode of Medicine Monologues is going to be about infighting in medicine. And of course, in tackling this issue, I do realize that there are many angles to the infighting that we experience as physicians in our field. But I am basically going to take a Twitter tweet that I saw that I actually shared through LinkedIn, which garnered a lot of responses. And I am going to read them to you and then insert my commentary in between. So here we go. We're going to now share the screen. So first and foremost, I'm going to be bringing up the actual tweet that I noted. The original tweet, right? That's what's so cool about social media, is that everyone sort of can share the original words and ideas and feelings and share their own ideas and words and feelings. And then you can then piggyback off of that and share your words and thoughts and feelings. And so that's what's really cool, is you can generate a really full discussion without actually being there with one another. And so that's actually the beauty, I think, of social media. It makes us think and it makes everyone share. And that's how we come to possible change. So the original tweet is not in full, but it's by a Jesse Morse, MD, and it says, American healthcare and healthcare insurance is a scam. That's the problem, not the medical professionals who train for 14 plus years to be able to take care. And then there's 3 dots. So there's more there. And I'm sure that you could go to his account and see. But that was tweeted by or retweeted by Dutch Rojas, who said, there are essentially 1 million licensed physicians. If they banded together to fight for each other, they could win the war waged against them by Medicare, health systems, and commercial payers. Too much infighting. Fight the institutions that are wrecking medicine. #healthcare. Now, I guess you could say I retweeted that, but I didn't. I basically brought that tweet into LinkedIn and I wrote the following commentary on that. Infighting in medicine sucks. Why do we do it? I'm not asking this rhetorically. I'm asking because I actually want to see a list of reasons as to why we fight. Other professions seem to come together with ease to fight off the bad guys and make their lives better. And yet in medicine, we can't figure out how. I have my own thoughts on this, but in the meantime, throwing it out into space. Now, if you're not already following me, you can. I'm on LinkedIn as Donna Corriel, MD. And I also want to say that I have officially created the backbone, the initial structure of a live virtual conference on healthcare discussions. So that's going to be added to the calendar of our 2025 virtual conferences. And I am going to note that I am here visiting my parents in beautiful Florida and that it just started raining. So it's beautiful and that's in the background. So it might get loud in the back of me, but it's just, nature's really beautiful. I see black clouds. All right. So that's my post. And here we go. Let's scroll down and click into the comment section. Please note that you can watch this through YouTube. So you can actually see me talking and you can actually see me scrolling through LinkedIn, but you can also listen to this through podcast audio version. So let's read the first comment that comes up. Wayne Pohl, MD. It says he's medical device, laparoscopic, and robotic surgery consultant. And he says, physicians are notoriously competitive with each other and like to, quote, eat their own. Hard to say why this starts, but even physicians in their own group rarely root for each other, let alone doctors in other groups. Everyone wants to be the top dog. When complications are reviewed in some sort of hospital peer setting, you can always count on at least one doctor in the room to state, quote, this never should happen, quote, when in fact these things do happen. And now you see that it's pouring all around me. I hope that the mic is not picking that up. The ethos of, quote, I'm better than you, quote, AKA holier than thou / virtue signaling, which we see in societal politics, extends into physician culture. Maybe this is because getting into school was so competitive and we missed the opportunity to mature in our late 20s because we were locked away in the cocoon of residency. To that, I responded, I couldn't agree more. It's so sad. I wonder how we could nip this in the bud, or if it's even possible, given that we're part of such a competitive field that's so difficult to get into. I've opened up a student section in my own venture to try and bring the students closer to the doctors and hold more discussions like these early on. To which he replied, in corporate America, if you enter it in your 20s, you find very quickly that treating colleagues as if they are your opposition is a bad childish look, hurts the organization and the feelings of others, and you will hear about it from a more senior manager. Doctors don't have that experience in their 20s. And then in the voluntary medical staff model, the hospital just wants to get the referrals. And if you're a good doctor, you get a pass. If the employed medical staff models, hospitals are getting more aggressive about bad behavior, and I know of a few doctors who did not really survive the transition and learned the lesson, quote, the hard way, they got fired. Whatever these lessons are, it's a good idea to at least teach these during residency. Some business skills, self-care to avoid burnout, and team building probably should be part of a school and/or residency education. To this, another physician, Schuyler Rogg, MD, MBA, wrote, Wayne, this is a main reason why MBAs have taken over medicine, to be honest. There is some kind of major dysfunction for a segment of physicians who become competitive with colleagues rather than work together. Another comment came from fractional bookkeeper and controller Jeff Coombs, and he writes, Donna, even if there was a magic wand, is it too late? Amazon already offering One Medical. Imagine Amazon Legal, Amazon Tax, Amazon Financial Planning, etc., coming soon. For sake of discussion, let's say they all initially offer poor, terrible quality. Does it matter? Consumers are so fed up with current state of white-collar service. They'll be switching over in droves. Leah Houston, MD, founder of Evercred, writes, Jeff Coombs, this is what we don't understand. It's not up against each other. It's up against mostly corporate and some government interests that are not serving us or our patients. I also replied to Jeff and I said, it's interesting to weigh what patients flock towards, the factors involved there. They'll go towards either a cheaper option or whatever has name recognition. In some select cases, when they're fully fed up with the services they get in the cheaper option, they'll potentially look into switching. Issue is, most Americans don't visit the doctor regularly enough to really care. Plus, the body is amazing at healing itself, so many of the times they get better and don't think twice about the issues at their medical visit, or just chalk it up to healthcare being healthcare. It's the docs and other healthcare professionals who are stuck in systems that don't work and are getting burnt out. I'm hoping that it's never too late. To which Jeff wrote, thanks for the thoughtful reply. And I wrote, of course, thank you for interacting meaningfully as well. I appreciate everybody that interacts with my posts, of course. And I'm just going to look over some more replies. J. Michael Connors, who writes that he's continual improvement seeker with old school belief. He writes, we do band together to blame everyone else for our problems, haha. To that I write, funny, humans are innately good at this when given a chance to, especially when living in a democratic society where freedoms are granted to do so, of course. I couldn't see this happening in a country with more restrictions, of course. But yes, I couldn't agree more, and I'm hoping that change begins there. I'm going to expand on that and just say here on this episode that what I mean is that when you actually go and you visit other countries that don't have the healthcare that we have, you actually can experience that people can't even complain about the things that don't work in their healthcare, right? There's other countries where governments are in control and where you're not free to say what you feel. And so I do personally feel lucky that I live in a nation where democracy rules and where we do actually have freedoms to complain about what doesn't work and to do so openly. So I do actually appreciate that. Now, J. Michael Connors writes back to me, Donna, freedom to serve only oneself is a too common problem in the USA. Disparity in income and pride drives most hierarchies in medicine. Docs overvalue themselves at the expense of their colleagues and patients far too often. All right. Now, the next person to get highlighted is Tina Amarnani, MD. She's a consultant, MD, and engineer, and she writes, competition and fear-based scarcity mindset are bred into most physicians from their pre-med years. That there are, quote, not enough med school spots, not enough residency spots, no way they can survive in medicine without throwing their trainees or peers under the bus to cater to the desires of their inline superiors/administrators. No way that they can get tenure without undermining any other physician scientist in their institution who overlaps in their research interests, and the list goes on. I think this is why we see some physicians deny and cover up medical errors as well, even when disclosing them would provide an opportunity to course correct for the patient's sake before it is too late. They are so scared of losing everything that they've worked for their entire lives that they will say slash do anything to protect their own interests, even if it means hurting those who they took an oath to protect and serve. In some ways, it is understandable behavior, but in other ways, it is terrifying to know that we have such little effective self-regulation as a group of professionals who are tasked with protecting and serving society because so many individual physicians are protecting only their own interests first and foremost. To which Leah Houston, MD, says, truth. And to which I reply, Tina, you've hit the nail on the head. Ours is such a competitive field, and more times than not, no one wants to rock the boat. We're still high wage earners, and we figure we'll just work in the system, even if it abuses us, because it pays our bills. We get to enjoy luxuries others don't most of the time, though it's slowly changing given some of the lower paying fields and the increasing amount of work that's done outside of work hours. And that's hard to give up. The systems know this and keep us locked in golden handcuffs because it serves them well. So I'm just not sure how change will actually happen. Not anytime soon. Now I'm going to pause and just kind of look around. It's raining literally cats and dogs. Recently on my social media account, I think it was on Instagram, I asked where that phrase even comes from because I was literally just imagining the visual of cats and dogs falling down on the rooftop just like rain. And I was like, I wonder where that comes from. And there were all kinds of different hypotheses as to why. I'm going to let you look up my social media account to see what I found. That's at Dr. Corriel. I'm branded across social media. All right. The next person is, let's do Stephen Moran, MD, Chief Medical Officer, Partnership Solutions, because he's actually been on our series. In one of the series episodes, he was a guest. So I'm going to read his response. Quote, over the last few decades, the profession of medicine has been buffeted by many forces of change, none so powerfully as the competition for its economic and social capital. Quote, physicians tried to fight the battle, but the rules of engagement of the free market were largely foreign to their professional culture. The effort ended up driving more of a wedge into the professional community. Physicians organized around specialty identities and entered a zero-sum game, with primary care and specialist physicians bickering over how dollars are divided among themselves while payers doled them out like parents deciding if they earned their allowance. This fragmentation, pitting physician against physician, only served to weaken the profession even more. With patients losing trust as physicians were distracted and reduced in their capacity to share the work of worry about their health. This seems to be part of what he wrote. And so I'll allow you to find his article, and I invite him and everyone else to submit their articles to the SoMe magazine, where we not only publish articles, but we also circulate them very uniquely for you. Tina Amarnani wrote to him, makes sense and interesting book cited in your article. Going to have to check it out. And then she added the quote, in their 2014 book, Scarcity, Harvard economist Senti Molainathan and Princeton cognitive psychologist Eldar Shafir make a compelling case for how the perception of threat to personal resources has a significantly adverse effect on cognitive function. While nidus of their work focused on the correlation between poverty and counterproductive behaviors, subsequent work demonstrated that the concepts of threat was relative and independent of income or even wealth. Adverse neuropsychological consequences can be triggered simply by the perception of looming or impending peril. Now, I'm going to stop here because I'm literally getting wet, but it's kind of a refreshing welcome because of the heat here in Florida. So I think we're going to be okay. My podcast, my mic is hopefully okay. So that's really interesting. Yeah, I guess when you're pushed up against the corner, the human nature will do all sorts of things. And I think that this speaks to that, right? Where do we stop and think about what we're doing versus where do we protect ourselves in like almost a primal / animalistic type of behavior to really protect ourselves, our family, our income, etc. Something to really think about. Jeffrey Nardine wrote, he looks like he's an AI developer. Stephen Moran. So in essence, what you're saying is that medicine, at least from the doctor's point of view, has become increasingly balkanized like late 19th century Europe? To which Stephen Moran answers in one single word. Yup. All right. The next person that I'm going to highlight is Dr. Susan Baumgirtel, because she's a wonderful network member and I've known her for quite some time and she's just a wonderful human. So she writes, Donna, ego and competition. I've been diligently connecting one-on-one with so many colleagues since I started my own business. What a breath of fresh air. It's been so enjoyable compared to the first 28 years of my career as a physician, when I had zero time/energy. I'm finding that so many of my colleagues are exhausted, overwhelmed, and suffering from moral injury. It's no wonder they have challenges communicating with peers. I replied, Susan, I love that you've been able to step away and do that. It sounds like you're not the only one who's the better for it. And off the record, not what I wrote here, I'm just going to say that that's really the beauty of social media and the online world and why I'm such a big advocate for it. I don't love social media as a whole. I really don't. I actually wish it didn't exist, even though I love interacting with it and I love the positives of it. I do see a lot of negatives of social media, but here, Dr. Baumgirtel definitely highlights one of the incredible positives of social media, and that's that it brings us together online in a virtual setting, and we can discuss all of our ills and the things that actually don't work out. We can also discuss our ideas, our new businesses, the actual new strategies that we put into effect. And this is also why I have built out communities for SoMe members and for the physician community to be able to connect. Admittedly, there already are some communities that are at play to quote network, but I'm finding that I am extremely stifled, not only myself, but others who know what's going on. Not every physician knows that other doctors are being stifled in certain communities, but they are.
We'll be right back.
Hey everyone, Donna Corriel from Docs. Docs has just newly released its Side Venture series. It joins a stellar lineup of other fabulous video and podcast series, including Entrepreneurship in Healthcare, Docs Conversations, and more. In fact, we're working with our members to create more interesting and unique shows to share with you. But if you're interested in side ventures, we do also have a Facebook group that's been built just for doctors that are curious on what else. Check out the Facebook groups that we manage at doctorsonsocialmedia.com/our-facebook-groups. I'll see you there.
Back to our show.
Not every physician knows that other doctors are being stifled in certain communities, but they are. And this is really a shame because it is not a democratic community where you're censoring folks and you're censoring only certain folks that do not align with either your viewpoints or your financial interests. And a lot of you listening to this probably know what I'm talking about. But again, I think the majority of physicians aren't yet aware of the, I'll call it shenanigans for lack of a better term, but the shenanigans that are happening across all kinds of physician communities online. And certainly a lot to talk about where it comes to that. All right. Alejandro Badia. He writes chapter 4, and he's referring to his book, of course. Chapter 4, Cats, Colleagues, and Collaboration, in book Healthcare from the Trenches. I'm going to tag his book. We created a book page for him in Docs, and so I'm going to tag it in the show notes. Alejandro Badia and Susan Baumgartel are both physicians that are actually going to be appearing in the series The Five.
Listen to a snippet from The Five.
And so I just don't think it's fair that, you keep going, paying for stuff for the distinct privilege, of making the hospital money. It's crazy.
Exactly. The decision would be very different if the hospital had to pay those physicians their compensated rate. Then it's like, oh, patient safety. Oh, but it's going to cost you a couple $1 million for all these patients. Well,
we can kind of fudge that. Yeah. We don't need to do that.
It's going to be a hoot. Now back to monologues.
It's such an exciting series that I'm now editing, and we're still recording it. So look out for that. I hope that you subscribe to Docs and stay tuned in. All right. Cecilia Cruz, another network member. Thank you to all my network members who are commenting here. She's physician, founder, and CEO for Marpay LLC. We have forgotten how to connect as human beings. We seem to believe that by pushing others down, we will stand out more. This is the furthest from the truth. It is only through intentional, conscious awareness of self, of what is most important, of how we are and how we want to be, and how we show up during interactions, that we can truly shine and give others the space to do the same. To which Ryan Ismail, USA FMG MD, multi-specialty ICU, he writes, Cecilia Cruz, agree. The capitalism in medicine is not about chasing highest patient outcomes, but rather chasing career-defining opportunities before someone else. I keep thinking the quote, what do you call the person who graduates medical school with the lowest grade in their class on the final exam? A doctor. Doesn't hold much weight in the eat or be eaten system we have. All right, to which I guess I'll read this. I'm not going to be biased, but to which Leah Houston says, Leah Houston, MD, founder of Evercred. She writes, I don't know, you tell me. I've been trying to work with you for years. I'm not going to comment on this because clearly there's a lot more than what seems on the background and foreground. And I don't think it would be fair, at least in this moment of time, to be talking about that. So I'm going to leave that comment unanswered for now. All right. Let's go on and say, okay, so A. Majid Khan, he's a medical director at Elemental Health / Regions Behavior Health. He writes, too many chiefs, which could stand on its own, but I also wonder whether he meant too many chefs, as in too many chefs in the kitchen. Bright response. definitely makes us think through things. All right, let's highlight Dr. Robert Kornfeld's response. He's a podiatrist and also a network member. I believe there are a number of factors. One is ego. During residency, we are pretty much brainwashed into believing we will be really well trained to handle anything. That can lead to a haughty, holier than thou attitude. Second, there is overlap in some specialties and it fosters marketplace competition. Lastly, there is more than one paradigm to practice medicine in, and instead of embracing all of what is available, we feel either threatened by different paradigms or ignorant of them and will dismiss anyone doing things we don't do. The reality is that we may be too smart for our own good. Neil Mushlin, DO, MBA, physician at Advocor, pulmonary and sleep specialist, right? Couldn't agree more. We as physicians get divided and conquered. Shane Purcell, MD, author of Magic, Pixie Dust, and Miracles. I'm going to read his quote. He was recently one of our speakers in our Private Practice 101 conference. I will once again link it below in the show notes. He writes, money, power, arrogance, and a pissing contest. Certainly our competitive natures and drive to get ahead make it worse. To which Leah Houston, MD, writes, Shane, you're right. But why is that? In my opinion, it's because we were trained that way, and it's how we got to medical school and residency, and we're not acknowledging that the tools that served us to get us to where we are often don't serve us once we got there. And those ways of being, habits, and practices need to be released in order for us to be successful in this and the next phase. To which Shane Purcell says, Leah, agree. And it's very strange and magical to see how the hashtag direct primary care community helps each other. Folks should attend the DPC Summit or DPC Alliance event to simply see the power of together. So refreshing. But I will say, as we see DPC grow, I fear this openness will change. Will competition hashtag DPC divide us? That's a good question. I actually have my own thoughts on that. I'm not going to spend the entire episode talking about it, so I'm just going to say the following. I think DPC, the direct primary care movement, is wonderful. I do worry, and I do see that even within the DPC community, I also obviously have insider intel from doing what I do and from networking with so many of you and from so many physicians behind the scenes, especially people that are in leadership positions, is that the DPC movement itself seems to be somewhat fractionated in certain points. Again, I say that as a completely unbiased viewer from the outside looking in, because I don't practice DPC, but I am someone who thinks the direct primary care movement is an interesting one that holds a lot of value to where the future might be. I think that we just have to be really careful about sort of starting a practice on our own and then kind of who exactly is ruling, who is leading. Okay, that's always really important to say. And again, that's no knock on any one person or any one movement. I think that it happens in every new grassroots movement or organization that has been going on. And this is something that we see again and again and again, right? Take our organizations that have been with us for many years, take the AMA and take the ACP and take all of those organizations where physicians are increasingly losing trust in some of these organizations because they're basically saying, well, we pay them a hefty amount for memberships, but what are they actually doing for us? And what's noteworthy here is that there's so many new, right? Thanks to social media, once again, thanks to the online world, there's so many new online communities that are coming up, right? Birthed by myself, birthed by another physician, birthed by just regular Joe Schmo physicians that just have had enough and are saying, we're now going to create it. We're going to create organizations and movements that impact change and that physicians can now believe in and trust. And this is why I am holding that physician conference, that live virtual physician conference on healthcare discussions, is because I would like to bring a lot of the leaders from these groups, right? Whether it's a Facebook group that started that has momentum, whether it's an actual organization that's starting to collect membership dues that thinks that it's, that's focusing on a specific niche and an issue in healthcare. I would love to bring them to the virtual table and give them an amplification platform and then bring everyone in, right? We make our conferences free while they're live, right? So bring all of the voices that we can and bring them all to listen to these leaders, right? Where we all respect each other on stage and give each other the ability to tell everybody what we're trying to do, and then allow people to come and to join our movements. That's what I've been trying to do for a long time. And now that I have many virtual conferences under my belt, I will be hosting this in 2025. So reach out if you are part of an organization and want to be featured, but definitely not reach out if you want to attend, but just I'll link it in the show notes and you can certainly sign up. All right. Okay, let me take this out. Here we go. So Najmul Salman, he's independent hospital and healthcare professional. He writes, healthy competition in general breeds excellence. We were competitive as we wanted to excel and outcompete each other to provide the best care for our patients or show that we know more. Written more articles, more ego, etc., all eventually to outshine another. This is some convoluted way worked as we increased quality somewhat, kept a check and balance with liability, etc. Competitive nature can become destructive to ourselves and people we touch now, sorry. Now we need to unite as medicine is pure business in the hand of business leaders with no mission of excelling, providing best care for our patients, etc., except profit. It's time we all unite as this is marketplace of healthcare where every stakeholders collaborate to maximize their position. We are in this condition because we don't collaborate and other stakeholders take advantage of our lack of collaboration and competitive nature to each other. To which Nina Kudo, Rising Strong, she's got a BA and a BHSC, she writes, Najmul, healthy competition? I would state that we are all equal to the best. We all can learn from each other, help one another. There is no need for health competition. In my opinion, if we should be rising one another up to grow and expand, not undermine. And I'm kind of rephrasing just a little bit because there's been some grammar issues or autocorrects. J. Clint Lowry, MD, board certified emergency medicine physician, writes, the phrase herding cats comes to mind. To which Leah Houston writes, correct. I've been told that I've become a cat herder. Wasim Ganham, he writes, he's an MD, MBA. He writes, we physicians are our own worst enemy. If we came together as true professionals, we could collectively end the cronyism. We would actually achieve what the American Medical Association was supposed to achieve on, quote, our behalf. I talked about that just a few minutes ago. But if everyone wants to be employed, make $350,000, have every holiday off, be off by 6, take limited call and have someone else manage the business, then congratulations. You let the fox into the henhouse and have nobody to blame except yourself. I replied to him, Wasim, can't disagree with this. Now that I'm my own boss, albeit doing something different than seeing patients, I can't imagine someone else telling me what to do. But I work harder and longer than ever. Difference is that I absolutely love it, and partly because I get to set the rules and take my career in the path that I want it to go. Alex Piazza, helping businesses grow, he writes to Wasim, I genuinely am curious on where that mentality comes from. When you think of high-paying educated jobs, I think most people's mind will instinctively go to either MD or a lawyer. The difference being people who pursue law know they will be in for long days and constant work, where it seems like more people get into medicine and angle to get themselves through residency to eventually make a lot of money and do as little work as possible. Wasim writes, Alex, residency training starts from there now with capped hours. Everyone is now taught to, quote, manage their shift and not own the patient encounter. Marty Nichols, Physicians First Bank, Bancorp, writes, Wasim, what's crazy is that doctors have the ability for change. It's called the script. It's why your reimbursements are cut every year while your overhead increases, and yet PE, private equity, wants to buy you and hospitals wish to employ you. Grace Anzalone Murphy, she writes, Wasim, I'm liking you more and more. Ronen Friedman, MD, MBA, President CEO at Western Rural Health System, writes, Wasim, I have been a member of the AMA since before medical school. I think I joined in 1998 and have been a member since. The way we vote where our lobbying dollars does not seem to represent our interest. The AMA backed the watered-down Affordable Care Act, not the original bill. This resulted in insurance companies gaining even more power, a loss of access and choice by patients, and dissatisfaction by both doctors and patients. I use this example because when they sent out the voting slips for the ACA, the members voted for the original, not for the privatized version. I think we are trying to band together, but do not know how to do it. Every specialty has a different college, and we are moving farther away from primary care and multidisciplinary care to a more expensive hospital-based system, which taxes the entire healthcare system and us as individuals. That's the problem. I wish I had a solution. I think I'm going to reach out to him, and maybe he's got some insight as to who could speak at our healthcare discussions conferences in 2025. I'm going to also highlight Dr. Christine Bashara's quote here because she's a GI doctor. She's a physician, speaker, author of the bestseller, The Gut Revolution. I own it. And I also wrote a recommendation for it as well. And she's also the chair of our upcoming Gut Health Conference, which you can also access when it's over, because that's how our virtual conferences work. She writes, what I've come to realize is that most physicians have been taught to be rule followers and not renegades. A few will fight, but most will not for fear of retaliation, losing their jobs, or being ostracized. I'm with you, and I am ready to challenge a lot of what we have been told as truths. To which I wrote to her, oh, now I lost it. Here we go. Dr. Bashara, I really love that. We need more people to step out of our, quote, rule follower shoes and lead with our heads held high. Will we make some mistakes? Probably yes, but we will be proud of trying and hopefully of ultimately succeeding in bringing about some change. Here is Dr. Delia Chiaramonte, MD.
I'm going to pause here and quickly correct my mispronunciation. Her name is Dr. Delia Chiaramonte.
She's a palliative physician. I'm going to highlight her as well because she's going to be a speaker in our 2025 live virtual conference on pain management and some of the alternative means of addressing pain. I think there is a trauma response component. Some people chose medicine because of a trauma, example, mom died of cancer, and medical training is traumatizing. Fear of humiliation, unable to sleep/pee/eat, fear of hurting someone, asked to do things that you don't feel safe doing, etc. A nervous system impacted in this way will see threat everywhere, even in supposedly collegial relationships. We are also trained not to show vulnerability, which is key for connected relationships. We can work on this, though, because our nervous system is modifiable, neuroplasticity. Ideally, we work on it individually and also over time add this awareness to medical training and change culture. A lofty goal, but worth working towards, in my opinion. Ooh, I'm excited to hear her talk at our conference. The next person I'm going to highlight is Benoit Herbert, who's a cardiothoracic surgery fellow at Indiana University, who says, who are the bad guys? That's a great question, and I love that. It just kind of almost like leaves you there like a cliffhanger. In fact, I think I'm going to leave this as the cliffhanger for this episode, and I'm going to conclude it. And I am maybe going to even post it on my LinkedIn as the next post and see who answers that. And maybe those replies are going to make it into Medicine Monologues. And that's who are the bad guys. So thank you to Benoit Herbert for inspiring me to add that into my posts. It's going to be a great question, and I'm going to be very curious to see what all of my colleagues reply to this question. Let me unshare my screen now. As you can tell from comparing the beginning of this episode to the end, if you're watching, of course, is that it got dark. It's late. It's actually 8:30 p.m. here in Florida. It's still raining, but it really kind of is more of a drizzle at this point in time. I really hope that my voice came through as I was reading the responses. As I was filming this, it almost felt surreal because of the anger in the sky, the dark skies, and the loud the loud falling of the rain, the loud thump as the rain dropped really heavily. I mean, the truth is, it literally rains every day here while it's summer. So I think it just was surreal to serve as the backdrop for this episode of Infighting in Medicine. I invite you to weigh in as well about infighting in medicine, certainly in our SoMe Docs Facebook group. I'm going to be posting about infighting in medicine, and certainly when this episode comes out, you can watch it or listen to it. And I invite you to also post about it publicly in your own social media posts. Part of what I'm trying to do in SoMe Docs is really to facilitate discussions that you can have and not only share on SoMe Docs so that we amplify your work, but also on your own social media platforms so that you can take our ideas and our suggestions for topics and you can really respond to them on your own accounts and really grow those. That's ultimately what I'd like to see, is the growth of each of my individual colleagues' accounts. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope to see you, in quotes, see you next time on the next episode of Medicine Monologues. I'm Donna Corriel, and thanks for tuning in to this SoMe Doc series.
Thanks so much for listening.